Hello everyone, welcome to yet another sessions of the daily news analysis by SRIRAM'S IAS, where we take up the important articles featuring in the Hindu newspaper and break them down for our simplification from the UPSC examination point of view. Let's take up today's articles for discussion. The articles which are important in today's newspaper feature on our screens, and let's take up the first article for the day. The first article which appears in the newspaper talks about the WTO Ministerial Conference, and the article talks about the Indian interests at the WTO Ministerial Conference. Now, we know that the WTO, or the World Trade Organization, is an important body, and its issues as well as negotiations with India are always in the news and are very important, which affect not just international trade but also India's economy as well. That is why this topic becomes very important for us to study, and the developments which are happening at this forum are of particular importance for us. So, we will try to understand what this body is and what is this ministerial conference which has taken place, which ended on June 17, and what agreements did India come out with successfully and unsuccessfully as well. So, let us take a look at that first. First of all, when I talk about WTO, let us have a brief understanding of what is WTO first. Now, WTO is nothing but that body on an international level which tries to regulate trade and makes sure that the trade happening between multilateral countries is free and fair. So, it works for free trade between various countries. That is the mandate of WTO. And how does that achieve that? How does the body achieve that? The body makes sure that all the countries are not levying unnecessary import duties or export duties which hamper these trade. So, WTO's primary focus a lot of times is to intervene into the country's import duties or export duties, and it tries to curtail those duties so that the trade in the international arena is free and fair. So, WTO is generally dealing with those issues. Now, what has WTO's ministerial conference achieved? So, recently on June 17th got concluded the 12th ministerial conference, which is also known as MC12 of the WTO. Now, MC or ministerial conference is the topmost decision making body of WTO, wherein all the countries come together and negotiate on all the agreements on various trade aspects, and whatever agreements are negotiated upon, this conference takes the decision on them, and the decisions are taken through consensus. So, this year's conference which the agreements have signed, it has been known as the Geneva package, since it was signed in Geneva in Switzerland, and MC is the top of the organizational chart, which means it is the topmost decision making body for the WTO, which meets once every 2 years to take decisions, and all decisions are taken through consensus. So, this is the brief about WTO and the ministerial conference which met to discuss about the various agreements that India was in interest of, and some agreements India got in its favor, but some due to challenging circumstances India could not get its favorable stance. Now, why do these agreements become important? Like I have mentioned, the aspects of trade which gets decided on an international level become important as to the pertaining to international economy as well as has effects on Indian economy as well. That is why these agreements which India, since it is a body of member of WTO, it has to adhere to these agreements. That is why whatever agreements are being agreed upon, it becomes important for what purpose India is, whether it is beneficial for India or it is challenging for India. So, let us look at the various agreements which were signed in this year's ministerial conference. So, first major agreement was on agreement on agriculture. Now, why the subject of agriculture becomes important for India is because India is a heavy agriculture producing country, and it is one of the major exporter of food grains, which means that it fulfills the need of food security on a world level, and it plays a significant part in it. Therefore, it has been granted the significant contributor status by the World Food Programme. This highlights the position of India on the basis of exporting food grains and agricultural produce to major countries. This now this becomes important because if at all India is a major exporter, there can come times where India needs to stop the exports or limit the exports to a certain extent, and make sure that the food security at the domestic level, at the territorial level for India also is ensured. In the context of this, we have been looking at a lot of news with respect to India's wheat export ban policy, sugar export ban policy. All of this is being done to restrict the exports on an international level so that the food security at the domestic level is maintained. So this is how the transactions of export and import goes on, and this is how India is also placed at it. So which is why India, while going into the negotiations for agriculture agreement in the WTO, was of the opinion and was wanting to favor a stance wherein it wanted a clause in the agreement which could say that India is very much ready to export all the food grains because it is concerned with the food security of the world, but it wanted a exemption on this blanket clause that when time arrives, India should also be able to take care of its domestic food security needs, and therefore as and when required, India should be allowed to sort of promulgate certain export restrictions wherein, like the wheat export ban or the sugar export ban, India should be able to do so. Currently when India does this, it faces a lot of backlash from the WTO. So India was trying to take out this clause from this agreement, but unfortunately India did not succeed to make this happen, and the clause of limiting the restrictions on exports of the agriculture exports from India was not really favorable to India. Therefore, it was not successful in negotiating an agreement where it can levy certain export restriction to take care of its own food security. This became this was an important issue, but the clause of this agreement did not go in favor of India. But negotiators agreed that member countries would not impose export prohibitions or restrictions on foodstuff purchased for humanitarian purposes of the World Food Programme. So whatever foodstuffs is being purchased for humanitarian purposes, so negotiators agreed that member countries would not impose export restrictions for those kind of food grains. So this was the story with respect to the agreement on agriculture, which we also need to understand because it forms a part of our understanding of getting to know a lot of other issues which run around in the country and in the Indian economy, right? So with this, let's look at the next agreement which was there. The next agreement which was signed was related to the fisheries or fisheries related agreement, and in this arena India got a favorable position wherein it was able to extract an agreement which was facilitated and which banned it, where it was successful in carving out an agreement on eliminating subsidies to those engaged in illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing. And one important concept of overfishing was dealt with in the agreement, wherein the overfishing concept of fishing was also banned or regulated in this particular agreement. Now what does this mean? What is overfishing? Overfishing means that whenever in a water body or in an ocean, countries or the agencies extract fishes from that ocean, when they do that in an unsustainable pace wherein the extracting of fishes is way higher than the replenishment or the replacement of those fishes, this amounts to overfishing, and it is a serious concern with respect to the depleting fish stock in the oceans and also thereby affecting the larger health of the ocean. So that is why it is a very concerning issue, and a lot of coastal states indulge into overfishing, and India was successful in carving out an agreement dealing with all of these issues. Currently, the overfishing practice is around 34% of the total fishing practices prevalent in the world, and therefore it is signifying a major growing burden in the ocean's health, and that is why this agreement which was dealt for overfishing is a major success for India. Moreover, the agreement also says that there would be no limitation on subsidies for developing or least developed countries or LDCs for fishing within their exclusive economic zone, right? So we have dealt with exclusive economic zone. Exclusive economic zone is nothing but the 200 nautical mile extended boundary from the coast of a country. So where the territory ends, where the coast ends, 200 nautical miles beyond that is known as the exclusive economic zone, which is also considered a extended territory for that particular country. So the agreement says that in this particular territory, fishing is not prohibited and no limitation on subsidies is being levied by WTO's agreement on that. So the countries are free to carry out fishing in their exclusive economic zone areas. So this was the backdrop relating to the fisheries agreement, wherein India was successful in getting the agreement that it wanted. Now, third very important agreement with the MC12 conference is on the electronic transmissions issue. Now this is an issue which has been coming in the news a lot. Let's try to understand what this issue is all about, what was India's stand, and has India been able to deal with this issue favorably? So first of all, what is the moratorium on electronic transmission? Now what happens is that we buy a lot of goods and products from a lot of e-commerce sites who are either situated in the territory of India or any country, or they are situated out of the territory. So when it is situated in the territory of India, then there is no problem. But there are certain goods or products which are ordered from outside the territory of India, but their delivery is not physical. It is a online delivery. What kind of examples are there for such products? They are known as electronic transmissions, wherein the delivery, wherein the purchase happens outside the country, but the delivery is not done physically, it is done online. Such as for the products of music, we can buy music from a foreign company which is situated in outside India, but the delivery of this music is not going to happen in a physical form, it is going to be delivered online. So that is the example of electronic transmission. So other examples are e-books, films, softwares and video games. All such products, as we know, are online deliverables, which means that their delivery is not physical but is done via the online mode. Now this is the concept of electronic transmission. Now what about the moratorium on this electronic transmission? So earlier, now these electronic transmission products, these online deliverables, major exporter of these products are the developed countries who export majority of these products. So they since they export a lot of products into the developing countries, there was a moratorium, which means that a ban on, moratorium means a stoppage. So there a temporary stoppage. So there was, according to the last WTO agreement, there was a moratorium on this electronic transmission, which means that the countries which are importing such goods, such online deliverables, cannot levy a customs duty on such products. Since the products are not arriving physically, those products which arrive from the foreign country physically and are delivered physically to the consumers, our customs duty is levied on those goods. But since these are new types of goods, the online deliverables, the WTO agreement said that the countries which are importing such online goods which are not delivered physically, they cannot levy customs duty on it. And this moratorium was on the stoppage of customs duty, which has been again extended for 2 years, which is why it has been a big blow to India. Now, since India is a developing country which receives a lot of these online deliverables, people in the country order a lot of music and a lot of online deliverables in the country, and which comes from the developed country, but India has not been allowed again for 2 years to not levy any customs duty on these products. Now what help does custom duty make for a country on levying on such products? Why we levy custom duty is because for products which are coming outside the country, the domestic country such as India in this case wants to make sure that a dumping of these export products is not done in the country. First of all, that is why the concept of custom duty comes to the rescue. Secondly, the developed country is at a position where it is able to manufacture these products at a greater pace, of greater quality, but the developing country is not at such a position. Therefore, the concept of customs duty, where it can levy certain tax upon these imported products, helps generate revenue for the developing country, and hence in turn boost its production, domestic production on these products. So that is why India was backing the concept of levying customs duty on these online deliverables, which the WTO Ministerial Conference has not agreed to, and the moratorium, which means that the ban or stoppage on levying such customs duty has been extended, and therefore India has been awarded again with this big blow. Why is it a big blow for India? Because India cited data from the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, which is a UN body which collects data with respect to international trade and development, wherein it submitted that extending duty-free market, duty-free is not levying customs duty on this products, results in a loss of $10 billion per annum globally, of which 95% is borne by the developing countries. So since the developed countries are majorly exporting these online deliverable products to the developing countries, the market is huge, and by not levying the customs duties on these products, India and other developing countries are facing massive loss due to this duty-free market. So that was India's stand in order to ban or stop this moratorium, or sort of not continue with this moratorium, but WTO has and the other member states have not agreed with it, and the moratorium stands and is extended for another 2 years. So this is the concept of the moratorium on electronic transmission, which is quite an important issue which we need to understand. I hope the issue is clear. If there is any doubt with respect to this, you can put your doubts in the comment box below. Right? What was the next agreement then? The next agreement, which is again of much importance for India and has been quite in news, is on the agreement of patent relaxation or waiver. Now, why is this agreement or issue important? Now, 3 years since the COVID-19 pandemic occurred, we came to see that the vaccines were manufactured at the breakneck speed, but certain countries were able to manufacture those vaccines and they were able to give the shots to their citizens very rapidly. But certain countries who did not have the scientific knowledge of manufacturing the vaccines, the financial capabilities for producing these vaccines, were lagged behind. And that is why developing countries such as India and other countries were of the opinion that whatever technology of the vaccines is being discovered in the developed countries, or in whichever country which develops this technology, they should make available this technology, which we have studied earlier, forms a part of the intellectual property right, especially the patents, where we register patents for these kind of vaccine technology. So India's stand was that whichever patent technology is being discovered or recently scientifically discovered in whichever country, they should make available the developing country and the least developed countries with these technologies and not charge for this technology, so that not just the developed countries get the vaccines, but also the poorer countries also get the access of this vaccine. So on this front, there has been a success for India and other developing countries, where the members have agreed on authorizing use of the subject matter of patent, which would mean the technology of the vaccine or the method of making this vaccine for the producing of COVID-19 vaccines by a member country, which means that the member country which has discovered the scientific technique of producing the vaccine, it should be able to give it to the poorer countries. This is to help the poorer countries with the access of vaccines. But this move is touted to be a little too late coming nonetheless, because after 3 years of the pandemic, the LDCs or least development countries have been suffering due to the balance of payment crisis, which means that they do not have enough forex reserve or dollars or other international currencies to import such vaccines. That is why they have been facing issues already due to depleting forex reserves, different levels of development and financial capabilities. So all of these issues have been hindering the LDCs or other least developed countries and developing countries. But let's see, the agreement which is now being signed should be able to bring some relief to these countries now and should be able to open the doors for the vaccines which are being manufactured and produced in the developed countries, and the benefit of these vaccines should be able to be shared in the whole world worldwide and not just for limiting countries, right. So these were the important agreements which we can see are being discussed upon on the important aspects of world economy and world governance. That is why these agreements become very important, and the understanding for this for us also becomes of pertinence for us from the examination point of view. With this, let's move on to our next article for the day. The next article which appears in the newspaper talks about the India-Bangladesh relation, wherein the article reads, India-Bangladesh should work on river management. Now, this particular issue we know it becomes important for us from the aspect of GS2, where we have to study India and its neighborhood relations. So India along with Bangladesh, what is the issue on this river management? We'll see. So first of all, why is India meeting with Bangladesh on the basis of or the case of river management? We have been seeing in the news, most of you all must be seeing that there have been violent floods in the region of northeast India as well as northern Bangladesh and northeastern Bangladesh. They share the same area. So both these regions have been facing massive floods from the past few days, and there has been significant loss of life and property to the northeast region of India and also to the north and northeast region of Bangladesh. That is why on this context, the two external affairs ministers of both countries have met and have discussed on the river management issue of both the countries, where India and Bangladesh share around 54 rivers amongst them, and there are certain potential points where India and Bangladesh can come together, and also there are disputed points as well, such as the Teesta river disputes, wherein Teesta is a river flowing from India into Bangladesh, and both countries are yet to come at an agreement of validly sharing the water between this river. So we'll take a look at the river management plan between both these countries and also the other areas of cooperation and India-Bangladesh relation which become important for us from the exam point of view. So first of all, let's look at the river front. So before looking at the river front, so where have the external affairs of India-Bangladesh met? They are meeting in the 7th round of India-Bangladesh Joint Consultative Commission. This is the body which means that this is the 7th round of meeting between India and Bangladesh, wherein they come together and discuss upon mutually cooperative issues where they can cooperate upon. So this is the body where they are meeting, and apart from river management, the external affairs of Bangladesh has also said that they are keen on agreeing or cooperating on issues such as AI, cyber security, startups and fintech as well. These are the future or potential areas where the India and Bangladesh want to cooperate upon, wherein Bangladesh has shown special interest in. Now let's come to the concept of river sharing first. When we talk about river sharing, two rivers that need importance to be seen is the Brahmaputra river, which flowing from northeast Assam flows through Assam and then enters into Bangladesh. So Brahmaputra rises in the Tibet region, wherein it flows from Tibet and reaches Indian mainland from the Namcha Barwa region and enters into Arunachal and then Assam and then finally drains into Meghalaya. So why does this river become a cause of massive floods in this region? Because this river, when it travels from the Tibet, it comes from a very high elevation and therefore carries along with it a lot of sediments, as well as the speed of the river is quite high. That is why when it enters the mainland, the speed of the river and the sediment load makes a case for massive flooding in this region, and every year flooding is encountered. This becomes the natural reason due to which the flooding occurs. A major man-made reason due to the increased flooding in the region is the human-made embankments. Now what are embankments? embankments are artificially constructed banks to alter the course of the river. So a lot of places in northeast India, such embankments are constructed to alter the course of the river. Now what this does is, when you alter the course of the river and where there are embankments, the water gets regulated over there. But at places where there are no such embankments, the water gets in excess over there and floods result in that area. So this becomes the major man-made reason for the floods in northeast India as well as in Bangladesh. So these reasons are the reasons which is why a lot of instances of floods are being seen in this region, and that is why India and Bangladesh, both facing losses due to this flooding, are wanting to come together, and India wants to assure Bangladesh of all kinds of help with respect to the flooding that has occurred in Bangladesh. So this is with respect to the Brahmaputra river. And second river which is of focus is the Teesta river, which rises from the Sikkim Himalayas and travels from Sikkim to West Bengal and then finally enters into Bangladesh. So these are the two major rivers. What is this Teesta water dispute? We'll look at it in a bit. So these are the two major rivers which we should know, and we should have a look at as to how they originate from India and enter into Bangladesh. Now let's look at some other areas of cooperation between India and Bangladesh. So first is the landmark land boundary agreement in 2015. This was a remarkable agreement which was signed between two countries, wherein what happened was both countries swapped two territories belonging to each other, wherein a territory which was earlier belonging to India was transferred to Bangladesh, and a territory which was earlier belonging to Bangladesh was transferred to India. This historic agreement was done to resolve the border issue and to ease the tensions on the border, which was done by swapping the disputed lands. This allowed the inhabitants to choose their country of residence, and the inhabitants were incorporated as citizens of India, either India or Bangladesh. So this was a major agreement which signified that India and Bangladesh could peacefully resolve their disputes. So this became a major cooperation point between India and Bangladesh. The second point is on economic cooperation, wherein India and Bangladesh have heavy trade relation, and Bangladesh is the largest trading partner for India in South Asia region. So Bangladesh is India's biggest trading partner in South Asia, wherein India exported around 9.21 billion worth of goods and services in 2018, and it has also imported 1.4 billion worth of goods and services. So the trade relation between both countries is quite solid and going good. And India also offered duty-free access to multiple Bangladeshi products. So this has been also the push from India's side, wherein it has also eased the entry of Bangladeshi products into India. Second is the major area of infrastructure cooperation, where both countries have cooperated on infrastructure, especially India contributing to Bangladesh on their construction of a lot of infrastructure products. So infrastructure projects, India since 2014 provided 3 lines of credit amounting to $8 billion to Bangladesh for the construction of roads, railways, bridges and ports. But due to slow project implementation from Bangladesh, only 51% has been utilized by it. So India has supplied close to $8 billion line of credit, which shows India's presence and contribution to its Bangladesh's infrastructure development. And when World Bank refused to fund the construction of the Padma Bridge, India provided the line of credit for the construction of it. So India has been quite active in helping Bangladesh with its infrastructure projects. The other area is of the connectivity. India and Bangladesh share a long border between them. That is why the issue of connectivity is always at the heart of both countries, and they have done significant projects on the area of connectivity, wherein 3 passenger and freight railway services are currently in operation between India and Bangladesh, and at present 2 more routes are also restored by both governments. The recent Chilahati and Haldibari rail link is also a significant project. This has been inaugurated very recently. And the Kolkata, Dhaka and Agartala bus service, which links the mainland India from Bangladesh to northeast, also launched in 2015. This reduced the distance between Kolkata and Agartala from 1650 kilometers, which had to go from the Chicken's Neck, which is the Siliguri corridor, to just 500 kilometer, which will now pass through Bangladesh. So the topic of connectivity is of much importance to India and Bangladesh, especially for India, which also holds strategic importance, wherein a lot of times this Chicken's Neck or the Siliguri corridor becomes an important choke point, if not dealt with, can cut off the northeast region from Indian mainland. That is why more the connectivity of India and Bangladesh with the northeast region, the better it is for India from the strategic point of view as well. And then recently Indian Prime Minister also inaugurated the much talked about Maitri Setu bridge, which is a 1.9 kilometer bridge that connects Sabroom in India with Ramgarh in Bangladesh. So this becomes another major connectivity point between India and Bangladesh. And then a lot of border haats are organized in the border districts, so that trade and people to people interactions between the communities of both border countries starts to happen, and it's facilitated. So a lot of these things are also done. Then the major topic of energy cooperation is also there, wherein India at present provides a power supply of 600 megawatt from Palatana power plant in Tripura to Bangladesh, and therefore Bangladesh has agreed to provide a 10 Gbps internet connection to India's northeast states. So this is with respect to the energy connectivity and also to data connectivity, wherein India is supplying power and Bangladesh is agreeing to provide internet services to northeastern region. And then a major flourishing has also been happening in the tourism sector, wherein Bangladeshis make up a major chunk of tourists coming into India. Not just tourists, but a lot of students from Bangladesh are also accessing education in India. So this becomes a major cooperation point between India and Bangladesh. Then medical cooperation is also quite heavy between two countries, wherein Bangladesh has received 9 million doses of Covishield vaccines from India so far. And apart from that, Bangladesh also accounts for more than 35% of India's international medical patients. Like I said, apart from students, apart from tourists, medical patients are also flocking in from Bangladesh to India due to better availability of medical services in India, and it alone contributes to more than 50% of revenue for India from medical tourism. So therefore, medical tourism point of view is also India and Bangladesh relations become very important. And other areas of cooperation wherein India and Bangladesh have signed Memorandum of Understandings or MOU in the field of health, medicine, joint research, and they have both agreed to exchange knowledge between health professionals of both countries. Now we have seen that this new 7th Joint Consultative Commission is also wanting to come together on newer areas such as AI, startups, fintech, and all of these new age sectors wherein Bangladesh can receive help and assistance from India. But what are the challenges between the relations between these two countries? This is the challenge part, wherein the Teesta water river dispute, the river which we saw in the map, is a challenge right now, wherein the dispute between two countries exists between the water sharing of these two countries, because the river originates in Sikkim and flows through West Bengal and Bangladesh, but in Bangladesh the river merges with Jamuna, which is also the Brahmaputra named in Bangladesh, and the Bangladesh government wants a major share of Teesta river water, and India is not agreeing with that the number of share. That is why there exists a dispute between India and Bangladesh, wherein currently the ad hoc water sharing agreement allocated 39% of water to India and 36% to Bangladesh, and the remaining 25% remain unallocated. This 36% is the point of contention for Bangladesh, where it wants more than 50% water of the Teesta river. That is why it's a point of dispute wherein the article also talks about which needs to be resolved very peacefully so that these two countries can have better river sharing and river management plans. Apart from that, the issue of drug trafficking is a major point, wherein a lot of drugs get smuggled from the border of either of the two countries, and therefore Bangladesh as a prime transit point of trafficking heroin from South Asia to Europe. That is why this particular concern from the Bangladesh is quite important for India, where it wants to stop this kind of trafficking of heroin from the borders of Bangladesh, and that is why this issue of drug trafficking is also needs to be dealt with. And third is the major much talked about issue of illegal migrants, wherein we know that there is a lot of flocking of illegal migrants as well from Bangladesh, which makes a lot of burden in the states of West Bengal as well as Assam, and this issue also needs to be dealt with between both the countries. So this was a snapshot between the relations of India and Bangladesh as to what areas they are collaborating on, and the areas which are which pose challenges and they need to be worked upon. With this, let's move on to our next article for the day. The next article which appears in the newspaper talks about Manipur remains cut off. Now this article talks about, as we are looking at the flood situations in northeast region, due to the floods, the major roads which exist in these states, due to landslips and landslides, these roads are cut off, and consequently what has happened is that National Highway number 37, which links Imphal, which is the capital of Manipur, to other mainland states of India and connects Manipur to other states, has been blocked away due to the landslips. And with this, due to this, it becomes important for us to look at this road and to have this location understood by us, because UPSC can always focus upon the niche aspects or the finer aspects of this region, since this region is always into the focus, and that is why let's take a look at this National Highway 37. So the National Highway 37, as I said, is a 222 kilometer highway linking Imphal, which is the capital of Manipur, to Jiribam and other states of the mainland states of northeast India and other parts. So this becomes a major transit point which is being choked. So that is why the NH37, the fact that it links Imphal to Jiribam and other mainland states, becomes an important point which we can take notice of from the perspective of prelims examination, right? This becomes important for us. Why? From the GS3 perspective, where we have to study infrastructure and roads, and also from the prelims perspective. With this, let's take up the next article. The next article which appears in the newspaper talks about the mixed reality has a blurred vision. Now this article talks about the important concepts in the field of science and technology, which are virtual reality and augmented reality. Concepts of virtual reality and augmented reality, wherein both are different but they have certain similarities as well, are important for us to understand, wherein a question has also been asked a few years ago by UPSC in this context. Let's take a look at this question, which talks about, in the context of digital technologies for entertainment, consider the following statements, which talks about augmented reality and virtual reality, which shows the importance of looking at the new age technologies which are shaping up for us, and that is why UPSC also keeps an eye on it. So let's try to understand these technologies. What is the article talking about? The article is talking about the state of virtual reality, wherein it holds a lot of potential, and a lot of companies such as Meta, Microsoft and other companies are building their virtual reality headsets and a lot of technologies, but a lot of work is to be done yet. But from the examination point of view, what is important for us is to understand these technologies. So let's try to understand the technologies and then we'll try to answer this question. So first of all, what is augmented reality? and what is virtual reality. So all of these two systems are basically trying to merge the real world which we exist in and the virtual world. One is the real world and one is the virtual world. When we talk about virtual world as of now, what is that? Our social media websites, the world of internet wherein digital information and an individual's digital presence is there is known as the virtual reality, and the real world is where we exist in reality. But these technologies of augmented reality and virtual reality are technologies to mix these two worlds, wherein the real world and virtual world would be mixed for better enhancement for entertainment as well as immersiveness of all the kinds of avenues of entertainment and all other avenues which are there, various other functions which we perform on the virtual reality platforms. We can be doing them more efficiently and in a major manner. So what is augmented reality then? Augmented reality is that kind of technology wherein the reality is in the virtual reality is being intermixed into real world, and a best example for this is the game of Pokemon Go, right? I hope most of you know this game. What was this game? This game was mixing the virtual reality into the real world, wherein we could see that a lot of young gamers went out in the open real world and holograms of certain Pokemons were there out in the wild. This means that there is a mixing of the real world and virtual world. So AR puts virtual things into users' real worlds, augmenting them. So they are mixing the two worlds, wherein we can see that due to some devices we can see virtual objects in the real world. That is the concept of augmented reality, where it is open and partially immersive. I hope how we can understand how it is open, since it's mixing with the reality, it's in the real world itself, and therefore it is partly immersive. That is the concept of augmented reality, where it is 25% virtual and 75% real. Therefore with augmented reality, users continue to be in touch with the real world while interacting with virtual. So when we see a lot of the concepts of hologram, the concepts of hologram is nothing but the example for augmented reality. Now coming to virtual reality. What is virtual reality? A lot of times we would have seen the headsets or the eyepieces which are made, which cover the eye and gives us a immersive experience. What does that do? These are virtual reality devices which create a whole new different virtual world in front of us. So therefore it is closed, wherein we enter into a different world altogether, and it is fully immersive, right? So the example for this is all the kinds of services, all the video games we play with that headset which is which we put in our eyes, and it transports us into a different world altogether. So where VR puts users inside virtual worlds, immersing them. That is the major differentiating point between virtual reality and augmented reality, wherein the users go into a different world altogether, and in augmented reality certain holograms are mixed with the real world and giving out a mixed experience. So therefore in virtual reality 75% is virtual and 25% is real, wherein the user is isolated from the real world while immersed in a world that is completely made up or not unreal or not real. This is the difference between the two technologies of virtual reality and augmented reality. Where we understand these technologies, the applications of these technologies are multifaceted and are touted to be of great importance in the future, wherein concepts of virtual reality can be used for learning a lot of techniques such as medical surgeries, learning a lot of engineering projects, wherein it can be learnt with virtual reality as well as in augmented reality. So therefore the potential of these technologies is quite high. which is why it becomes important for us to understand these concepts. Now with this, let's try to answer the question which was asked in the previous year examination. The first statement reads that in augmented reality, a simulated environment is created and the physical world is completely shut out. Was this the case with augmented reality? This was the case with virtual reality. In virtual reality, images generated from a computer are projected onto real life objects or surroundings. Was this the case with virtual reality? Rather, it was the case with augmented reality. So both these statements become incorrect. So if we eliminate 1, 2 from all options, we get only one option, that is B. So therefore, by eliminating these two options, we can come to the options of 3 and 4, which is B, which is correct. But let's look at 3 and 4 statements nonetheless. AR or augmented reality allows individuals to be present in the world and improves the experience using the camera of smartphones or PC. This is the feature of augmented reality, that is why it is correct. And VR or virtual reality closes the world and transposes an individual, providing complete immersion experience, right? This is the feature for virtual reality, and that is why right answer becomes 3 and 4 statements only. This is the concept of virtual reality and augmented reality. With this, we come to the end of today's discussion. We'll meet again tomorrow with the important articles of the day. Thank you.